podcast. It is 8:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am your host, Dan, and we are joined by New York Knicks fan and resident Raider fan, even though it's past football time. It's Chris Amato.
It's football season somewhere. It's always football season somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I guess Vegas Raiders, but yeah, always football season. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good. I'm feeling very relaxed. I'm feeling very content. You said, the Knicks are probably the most positive vibes in probably 7 or 8 years.
Oh, absolutely.
It's pretty nice. We recently have passed, the 10-year anniversary of the Melo trade. Oh. And what's crazy is like it's looking like they might break the playoff drought this year. I don't think this is a team that's going to collapse, but their drought now is playoff drought now is longer than the one that they ended when they got Melo, which is crazy to me. It's like 2004 to 2011 feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
I think it's just because I was younger, a lot more happens in your life. You like grow up and shit. But 2013 to 2021 is longer. And it's just like, how is that a longer stretch of time? But, I think just because of how good they are defensively, I don't predict a collapse. They can go to a 10 seed and get fucking bounced in that 4-team tournament. It's going to be happening. So we'll see, but feeling good. I think they're making everyone feel good, even though the Nets are way better, and it seems like they get equal of, it's like a higher bar that they have to clear.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Knicks is it's like, oh, this team is competent. They can kind of compete with other teams. Which has not been true in the past 5 years, I guess.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, it's been nice. All right, just to go into what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the Carson Wentz trade, J.J. Watt free agent signing, Derrick Rose getting traded back to the Knicks. We'll talk more Knicks in depth. Jazz have the best record in the NBA, and then we're going to talk about Texas energy issues with all that stuff going on. All right, so Carson Wentz. Eagles trade Carson Wentz to the Colts for a 2021 third-round pick and a conditional 2022 second-round pick that could possibly turn into a first-round pick, basically depending on how much Carson Wentz plays. So if he plays more than 75% of the Colts' offensive snaps, that'll be a first-rounder. But it also is a first-rounder if he plays 70% of the snaps and the Colts reach the playoffs. And then the Eagles, they still take $33.8 million cap hit, which is the largest cap hit any team has taken for a single player. And the Colts will assume the balance of Wentz's $128 million extension, which includes the $10 million guaranteed roster bonus, which is due on March 19th. So, this trade, what are your thoughts? Winners, losers, what do you got here?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of surprised the Eagles kind of got out of this, right? They kind of, that was the whole thing with Carson Wentz's contract and then Jared Goff's contract too, which, he was traded for Stafford. They were both these two guys who everyone talked about how they're unmovable. They're wow, these franchises are screwed because under the weight of these contracts and the salary cap, and their cap numbers were so big that you couldn't move the numbers around the way teams always seem to do when they're trying to get guys in the offseason. But that's the first thing that stuck out to me was wow, they actually did it and did it pretty early on. There's still another month until the offseason really gets going. One thing I saw today that was actually really funny that immediately should be ringing some alarm bells, I think, is that Michael Pittman, I guess, refused to give up his number 11.
Oh, really?
Immediate. It's there's already this reputation that everyone people hate that dude. He's toxic. Everyone wants him out of there. And his first thing you hear when he comes is one of his top targets, probably, if they're going to be good, one of their top targets besides T.Y. is just nah, dude. Guy who's only in his second year, hasn't built a legacy yet. He missed half the year for injury. Although I love Michael Pittman coming out of USC. But, I mean, yeah, that's the thing that sticks out is, that's already a thing coming up. And I'm sure he'll get asked about that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, right? A guy who I wouldn't say Wentz is a superstar, but he's pretty established as a guy that can play, and to a degree, he's had maybe 2 really good seasons, and it's kind of wild to see a second year guy just kind of publicly be nah, dude. Like, this is mine.
It's mine.
But it's, I mean, maybe you can flip that any way you want, though, right? I mean, if you're the coach, if you're Frank Reich, if you're a Colts fan or anything like, or you might be like, you know what, I like that attitude in my guys. You could say you could flip it that way too. But the Colts seem to like getting these, interception leaders, league interception leaders, and bringing them in, guys who can, maybe calm those numbers down a little bit and keep the good parts, like you saw a little bit with Phillip Rivers last year. And, maybe that's what'll work. I mean, I think an interesting thing, too, is, how many guys have you seen go be pretty good for a little while, just kind of sink, and then be pretty good again, if not better. And, and you think, I feel like it's more guys than you think. I think Ryan Tannehill a little bit, right? I mean, who knows? Wentz could have a Tannehill-esque season with the Colts, especially with that roster. Kurt Warner, if you remember when he went to the Giants, everyone was like, oh, yeah. Fairy tale's over. And then he goes to the Cardinals, almost, comes a play away from winning the Super Bowl. Also had a great roster around him. I mean, it's something that doesn't happen a ton, but I mean, with guys that are of that level, it's not crazy. I don't blame the Colts for doing it. But, those guys didn't leave the teams they were on, though, because of rumored, personality issues and things like that. So that's, there wasn't the drama around when Kurt Warner's decline or Ryan Tannehill underperforming in his 20s with the Dolphins. So who knows? I mean, I think Frank Reich and Carson Wentz will work great together, and they can make an offense work, and they're a pretty well-oiled machine, I think.
Yeah.
So it's not the worst.
I mean, Carson Wentz is 28, so he's not too young, but he's not like old enough to be like washed. And just that season though was just so weird for the Eagles because he was just missing throws left and right. Like some of those picks that he threw were just god awful. But I do think like you got Quentin Nelson at the line. He's a third-time first-team All-Pro offensive lineman, and just that offensive line in general is pretty good.
They'll protect him.
Yeah,
they had a bad line at the Eagles.
Yeah. So it's just like
they didn't have an O-line.
That'll help, but the thing is like the wide receivers around him aren't that great. Like T.Y. Hilton is as inconsistent as a wide receiver as you could possibly be. Like Michael Pittman, as you were talking about earlier, is just kind of still like fresh and still young. And hasn't really he's like played well.
Break out with Wentz. Him and Wentz might have a thing going.
Right, but it's just like I don't know. Like the Eagles, I felt like they always talked about like they don't have wide receivers around them, and then he couldn't make great plays downfield. He couldn't really pump up his stats. And it's just like I think it's just a confidence thing. Like I feel like that's going to be a huge issue with him is how can he build that confidence back up? Maybe just not having a competing quarterback. Like if Jacoby Brissett is your competition, like maybe that's just a lot easier. Even though like Jalen Hurts,
I think that line is going to give him the confidence. That's what happened with Phillip Rivers. Yeah. I don't think Phillip Rivers' problem was ever confidence the way it probably was with Wentz because of their age difference.
Right.
But Phillip Rivers didn't have a lot of time when he was on the Chargers. I mean, you could see that when the years where he was always kind of a high interception guy, but they really seemed to pile up in those later years when the Chargers offensive line deteriorated in conjunction with Phillip Rivers kind of deteriorating a little bit too.
Yeah.
But so I think that's the big difference is you're going to make any guy like that who's average or better is going to, have some games where he lights it up with a good O-line, especially against a bad team that maybe doesn't have a pass rush. So, I would give it, if we're doing like an out of 10, I'd say this is probably like a 6, the trade. I mean, it's just because you're taking a lot of risk. Because now, I think the Eagles, I don't know if the Eagles are eating some of the money or not. But, there's a salary cap in the NFL. This is something that can crush you. So
the Eagles are going to take $33 million.
Oh, my God. So they really didn't get out of it.
So, yeah, but the Colts are going to assume the rest of his $128 million, so it's not like the end of the world. And like the Eagles, when they get a third-round pick and then a second-round pick that could possibly turn into a first-round pick. So it's like the Eagles didn't get a whole lot for it, right? Because the Matt Stafford, Jared Goff trade, they ended up getting 2 first-round picks for that, which is like you might get 1 first-round pick, which is could be a thing for the Eagles depending on how much Wentz plays. But I feel like this is a pretty okay trade. Like neither team really won. Like Colts are just kind of like giving them like good picks, not great picks, to try to maybe see if this works with Wentz. And if not, then they'll just kind of go probably through the draft and try to draft. I don't even know who the quarterbacks are in the future now, but they'll just kind of
No
go through
one,
that. Because
no one
they're
seems to be hating on it. No
yeah
one seems to be like talking shit about this trade. It just kind of seems it's like, oh well, we'll see. And then the Eagles, it's like, well, long term, they got out from under that.
yeah
Not this year, maybe not even the year after that, but it feels like there's going to be probably like 2 years of pretty substantial pain unless Jalen Hurts is like, Deshaun Watson if he's what he was in college.
right.
That's the only way the Eagles aren't like bottom feeders for the next 2 years.
Right. I just what we saw from Jalen Hurts, I don't think you could compare him to Deshaun Watson like at all.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the end of the world because like maybe they just bottom out last year or next year. Maybe they get they still have they have the 6th pick this year, so they could totally just draft a quarterback if they wanted to.
Yeah, they could get. Well, I don't think they'll do that.
No, probably not. Probably an offensive lineman or
maybe they'll get like Devontae Smith or something.
Or that. Oh yeah,
That'd be cool.
They have holes.
That's very cool with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. All right, so moving on that. So J.J. Watt, he is a free agent this summer. A three-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's a hot commodity to a lot of teams. And it seems like he's taking his time. He's just kind of. I think I saw a tweet where he's like, "It takes me an hour to find something on DoorDash, so it's gonna take me a while to find a new city and team." So who do you think is on his short list?
Well, the Bills.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bills would have to be, and that's the only team where there's even been reports so far of like mutual interest, I guess. But then again, maybe I'm only seeing those reports because of where I live. Maybe it's just kind of in our local media atmosphere.
True. Yeah.
But I mean, at first people immediately were thinking the Steelers with T.J. Watt, but I feel like that kind of went away immediately. I mean, the Bucks maybe I could see that. They got space. They got space. They got to,
do they really? It seems weird.
Or if he wants to take less money.
I guess.
To get a ring. I mean, he's 32. And he said guys at that age, and especially in football, like that's what you're doing. You're going on a sprint, a 2 or 3 year at most sprint to a title. But again, the Bills could fit that mold too, especially if he's healthy and is, what he was 3 years ago, when last time he was first team All Pro. I mean, I'm trying to think. I
think you're missing a big one. The Cleveland Browns. So they have the space. You could match him up with Myles Garrett.
The Packers, I would say that. I know that I think of it.
The other, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the two Smith brothers on the outside, so where is he?
Well, he can play tackle sometimes.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And the Smiths play linebacker, too. Zarius plays linebacker a lot.
Yeah, I guess. They're like, them and the Bucks are just weird because they play like...
Darius is like a Melvin Ingram kind of guy. Like a linebacker defensive end.
But, like, I mean, the Bucks, too, right? They have, like, they play like a 2-4 almost. Like a 2-4 nickel.
Yeah. But that's the hot thing now is there's always, like, 5 defensive backs now.
Yeah. But, like, I think the Browns, I think that actually makes the most sense. So you match him up with Myles Garrett. You could like, the Browns have so much cap space that he could just make as much money. They won a playoff game last year. Like, I think that's, like, ideally what they want. Unless, like, I didn't really think of the Bucks, but that also seems like a viable place for him to land. Buffalo, I don't see how that works because, like, they do have cap space, but, like, not a whole lot. And if they do use all of that on J.J. Watt, like, Matt Milano's not signing with them.
You'd have to be like, I fucking love it here.
Yeah, and I don't...
Yeah, I mean, he might be one of those kind of guys. He might have seen the thing they're building there. You might see that guys like Stephon Diggs, who it seems like every time there's a microphone in his face, he's just like talking about how it's the perfect place for him, and he's having this record-breaking season, and that might create waves with a guy like J.J. Watt, who is a little bit older than Stephon Diggs, but they both came from situations where Texans were becoming a must-work situation, the Vikings were and are. But teams that couldn't get over like the kind of early round playoff hump really, or besides that one year where Stephon Diggs had the catch against the Saints, teams that were kind of stuck in neutral, and he might see that and decide he wants a discount. But other than that, I mean, Packers, Browns, and Bucks and Bills. I think depend on his personal attitude about those places and what's going on there.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely doesn't seem like a big city kind of person, so it's not like he's trying to, go to the Giants, go to the Rams or something like that. And I feel like
I love that people never think of Houston as like a big city.
Oh, true. What do I?
Even though it's
I'm totally forgetting that.
But no, people never do. They always like lump Houston teams in with like mid-size, like random ass places that are like don't have a lot of people, like Cleveland or something. But it's like no, like it's a massive fucking town.
It's like top 5 population, maybe like 6.
And Houston sports in general is kind of a mess right now. I mean, it's the other teams are kind of in disarray. So it's
the
just
Rockets,
it's
the
like
Astros.
it's the anti-Tampa. It's like everything in Tampa's clicking.
Oh, right. Yeah, but like just recently, like none of this was happening except for like the Lightning. Until
So yeah,
like
the Lightning are always there to create some momentum, and then if the other teams want to catch on, they catch on. This happened before too. Like, the last time the Bucks won the Super Bowl, the Lightning went and won it right after.
Oh, right.
I mean, those things just kind of happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Hockey's also just like kind of random. Like I just feel like the teams just get like hot, in like April or something, and then they kind of make a run.
Yeah.
But going back to JJ Watt, like I don't know. It really just depends on what he wants, right? And it just seems like he's still in like this decision-making process. Like, does he want more? Obviously, I think he wants to play for a playoff team. So all those teams that you just named are like within the hunt. I mean, the Bucks literally just won the Super Bowl. So like, the thing was like, if I'm the Bucks, obviously I want to add JJ Watt, but like, where do I throw him in? Because like Vita Veda and Ndamukong Suh were killing it like all last year, and then you got Devin White, you got Levante David. I forget their other like amazing linebackers. Like
You just put them on the defensive end. Yeah.
But they don't really have defensive ends. They do the same as the Pack. I guess I could work with the Packers, where they both play linebacker and then they like come up on the line, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could adjust some things. I mean, in that case, I mean, if you're signing J.J. Watt, and maybe they don't want to, but either way, he'd have to come cheap. It's a thing where he'd have to come and he would have to adjust to them if he's going to be there, whether it's the contract, the system, or whatever their idea is of what they want to do with him. I mean, I look here. I mean, it really is. They're very defensive tackle heavy. Like I feel like they don't have a lot of edge guys, so I could see it happening. I mean, and they could switch him out at defensive tackle too if they need to play a 2-man line.
Yeah.
I mean, Vita Vea was he hurt this past year for a long time, right? Until the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, if that happens again, and Ndamukong Suh is even older than Watt, I don't know. Will he even stay? I don't know if his free agency is in question or not.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
So, I mean, because honestly, they'd be very similar. I think at this point in their careers, Suh and Watt probably aren't far off. Which to me is what kind of makes this. I think this free agency on Watt is, I think it's just a little bit of noise, but I also think that's why people are only mentioning good teams that could go after him, because not just because he wants a ring, but because like those teams don't need him to be the old JJ Watt. They don't need him to take over and get 16.5 sacks or something and be defensive player of the year. They can just use him and his presence, and they already have all these other pieces. Maybe the Colts. Who knows? I don't know what their cap space is. Maybe their cap space is ruined now because of Wentz. But
yeah, I mean the Colts defense don't really. It's the same thing where they don't really need J.J. Watt, but like it would obviously be beneficial to the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean we'll just have to wait and see. I think obviously this guy like could put you like if this like especially as a Bills fan, like J.J. Watt would completely send Bills like over the edge. Like
everyone would be so hyped.
Yeah. Because that is the one part of like the Buffalo Bills roster that they really need to shore up is like defensive tackle, defensive end. Like they really need, and they're in like a win now mode that they need to almost do this in free agency.
They're
and
right
like
there.
Why not?
I'm interested to see what they're going to do. I wonder what they're going to do.
Right.
The Bills.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll just stand pat because they don't have a lot of cap space.
No, they don't. Yeah.
They haven't paid Josh Allen yet, right?
No, I think his extension will be this year though. Like he'll be 4th year, so like he's eligible
there
for the extension.
They almost gotta like make it work with these guys.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
kind of crazy to think too that like last year I think was like it's like Josh Allen a rookie contract. They have all these like kind of expensive players on their offensive line, like kind of on their defense. So it's like this is kind of one to make it work because like Matt Milano is probably gone. Like even if they don't sign J.J. Watt, like he's probably gonna get more money elsewhere.
he's testing. I saw it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely talking to those teams. He's not sealing himself up in Buffalo. So
right. That'll be a huge hole because like the Bills tried A.J. Klein there and he was like good
mm-mm.
some games, not really good most
Yeah,
games.
yeah, he's average.
Yeah, and like that Doxson guy, he's like just kind of came off the bench. I thought he played
Uh-uh.
well,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like he's no Matt Milano. Like that guy is
No,
like your
Milano's very
ideal
versatile.
modern linebacker.
Yeah, he covers guys.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what you need. Everyone's got to cover guys.
Yeah, yeah. All right, switching over to basketball because that's like actually playing
Oh
right
yeah.
now. That great transition right there.
I know. It feels like to me the NBA is back.
Yeah,
When the Knicks are when the Knicks exist as a team and are they're winning some games and they're in it a little bit. It just feels like the NBA like matters. It's not just like a series of weird soap opera storylines anymore, right? It's something I just feel invested in again because that they're playing the way they are, and it's been great, and it feels like it's only going to get better.
yeah. I think it's an uphill climb now. Like it is, they're not trending down. They're not doing stupid moves, like they typically
No.
always do. So they did trade. They traded Derrick Rose 2 weeks ago. They gave away Dennis Smith Jr., who fell out of rotation anyways.
Oh no.
Oh no, what are we gonna do? And then a 2021 second round pick from Charlotte. So like second round picks, I mean absolutely nothing. So they just got Derrick Rose for basically nothing.
Yeah, he just wanted out.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, he just wanted to be back in New York. He just wanted to do it
Come
up in
home.
Manhattan,
Come home.
eat some good pizza. Anyway, so this further muddled the waters of who will play point guard for the Knicks between him, or Rose, Elfrid Payton, and late first round pick Emmanuel Quickley, who's basically like Knicks Twitter's like I love him, and you do as well. So as a resident
Everyone
Knicks
does,
fan,
yeah.
who do you start, bench, fall out rotation? Who do you got for those three players?
I mean, I think you should start quickly. Quickly
Okay.
should start. I mean, Thibodeau's whole thing is that he likes Elfrid Payton because he's a veteran, but also he's a big point guard, and he like I don't know, Thibodeau's whole thing, and he says it, and all those players say it, is that if you don't play defense, you don't play. It doesn't mean that Rose and Quickly don't play defense, but I think Thibodeau likes what Payton does out there. I wouldn't say he's like an average defender. Like I don't think he's not like getting torched or anything. But I don't think that whatever he does is worth benching Quickly. But I mean, it seems like Quickly benefits from it. I mean, it seems like he benefits from going up against the second string guys, not having the best of the best go head to head. Although they've been trying to do that more. I mean, as his momentum started to pick up, you started to see them like double and triple, like rush him right up top, right at the point. And he finds ways out of it, but it slows him down a lot. So maybe Thibodeau knows that he can't really handle all that attention yet on the court. So I don't mind it, but because they're mostly winning. I mean, they won 4 of their last 5. I don't think D Rose should start necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it because he's D Rose. And it seems like he's able to stay healthy now, even though that means he's a diminished kind of form of himself. But
For sure, but still a serviceable NBA player.
I think,
so.
yeah, and like in the minute once the game gets going, you almost forget who started.
Yeah.
The minutes are split so much more evenly than they were when it was just Peyton and Quickly. At least to me, I don't know if that's statistically true at all, to be honest. I haven't seen that, but when I'm watching it, it just feels like, there's a lot less moments where I'm just like, why isn't Quickly out there? Why isn't Rose out there? Like, I feel like one or the other, if not both, and both of them together is what should happen. I think Rose should start at shooting guard over Alec Burks, or vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
I think you should have I know I just said that I probably would have, I'd start Rose over Peyton for sure. Peyton should not be starting at all, in my opinion. But if Quickly is point or Rose, it probably wouldn't matter who's actually the point on paper. But them together just works. They seem to really hit it off. They seem to be talking all the time. They both, quickly talks all the time, and so does Obi Toppin about how often D Rose talks to them and is trying to make them better. So I think that's something that should probably happen. Again, I don't know why it's not. I don't think it's hurting them right now. I think what's hurting them is just they overall on their roster, they don't have enough shooters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is all, you can have all of this talk. This is before you even talk about Julius Randle.
Yeah.
Who had, 44, 42, 44, 45 or whatever. Had a great baseline spin move dunk, I think last night when I was watching. I mean, he is something else. It's not as big of a turnaround as Josh Allen, but it's a very similar circumstance where, I think Julius Randle was much more of a proven NBA player even before this year than, someone like Josh Allen was. But, man, he's got to be the most improved player of the year. I mean, I don't know if it's close, right? I mean, I don't know who else it would be that's taken that big of a leap in the league. I mean, he wasn't a 20-point guy, really, I don't think. I mean, he was maybe 10 rebounds, 10 or 11 rebounds.
Well, it's also they're decent, right? It's not like he's just scoring 20 points a game on, a terrible Knicks team. He is actually contributing.
Yeah, the ball's getting moved around.
Yeah.
He's legit like a guy, they should not get rid of because he's still, 26.
Right. I mean, definitely this year, you should absolutely try to keep him. And Giannis already signed with the Bucks, and, this offseason is also not going to be that big, or as big as, expected. So, why not just try to keep him, try to, mold their young players. So, I completely agree with that.
And RJ Barrett's been great.
Yeah.
RJ Barrett is, he's a legit scoring threat now. He's no longer, just kind of out there, and then he kind of shoots it, and you kind of cringe a little bit. Kind of like last year and maybe the first couple of weeks of this year. He's out there and it's oh boy, he's going to do something. He's going to, he's going to get in there. He started driving to the hoop more. He stopped settling for threes because threes was never his thing.
Yeah.
At Duke, that's what he did was he just drove in there because he's big. And when he does that, he does well and they do well. So I'm glad to see a lot more of that too. But overall, it's just, they just need to get a little bit deeper. You can't have Alec Burks starting. You can't have him starting. You can't have him as your, one of your main shooting guard options at all if you want to be a pretty good team. That's their main thing. Obi Toppin has to, I don't know why that's another guy who I don't get why he's shooting so much. So less of that. But overall, it's not really something to complain about, I guess. It's just kind of happy to taste any joy at all with them.
So the thing with Obi Toppin is NBA draft, I knew nothing of him except that he played at Dayton. I had no idea he was even from New York and all this other stuff like that, which is just kind of stupid to say, especially someone that hosts a sports podcast. But so I kind of shat on the Knicks when they drafted him because there's why? So first of all, Tyrese Halliburton was right there.
I was pumped
for the take. Yeah, I know, and all of Knicks fans were, and I quickly deleted that tweet because I was oh, this is stupid. Especially when he was crying because he's going back to New York. I was okay, I'm just an asshole. Let me just delete this.
You're a fucking hater.
But I still think if they picked Tyrese Halliburton, that could have been their guy. He actually can shoot. He showed he can shoot. And he's another ball handler that can go to the hoop, that can kind of mold into any offense that they want, and I kind of feel they missed out there. But other than that, Emmanuel Quickly is as much as a steal as you could get in the late round, late first round. That guy has shown he could make shots late. He's just a fun, energetic player. He's got that swag or drip or whatever the kids say now. That kid really just
he's got that drip.
Yeah, that could pump up.
Hey kids, he's got drip.
Yeah, kids. Yeah. Let's play some Fortnite. Anyways, this Knicks team is just fun, and the thing with the Knicks is they're kind of the 49ers, or I don't even know the hockey term, or the Yankees. It's just huge market team that has historical reference to their sport, And it is good.
Yeah, let me say this about the Knicks, and I say this with love: unearned historical.
Oh yeah.
Like not a team like the Yankees or the Niners that has like dominated the sport for extended periods of time. It's
Right.
just a totally just made up kind of a ambiance, right? So it's solely derived from like the arena, the atmosphere, the fan base, the city. It's
Yeah.
not anything to do with like, oh, you come to the Knicks to win, you know. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, that can be a powerful lure, and it's hard. I guess it's not really hard to say why guys haven't come there. I think it's obviously James Dolan. I mean, he's the guy on top. He's been the constant. But you just show people that you can have fun there and win at least a little, at least have a chance at winning and be at a place where you can excel. And then you mix in the other stuff, which should give you the other boost. Then, you would think that eventually guys would come around. But, even when they were winning though, it's not like they didn't get like Shaq, right? They didn't get Michael Jordan when he was a free agent in the mid '90s and he kept staying with the Bulls. And any other major free agents during that time where they were really good. So I don't know. Maybe guys just don't like that. One thing that's interesting, and I think even if I try to be neutral about it and say that the Knicks make the NBA better, is the NBA is a league where like there really aren't that many like great fan bases. Like culturally great fan bases that have like a strong following and an intensity about them. It's probably in the low double digits, like less than half the league, I would think, because it's very, and I think I've talked about this on one episode I've been on here before, where it's very star centric. It's very much about kind of just rooting for individual players or maybe tandems, right? Like maybe someone loved the Thunder when they had KD and Westbrook, and now they don't care about the Thunder, and now they go and root for, Kawhi and Paul George or something. So
that's like a Gen Z kind of thing though. That's like a younger fan base where it's like I think
it's a millennial thing. I think it's been going on for like 20 years.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I just think it's like people that are technically younger than us because we are both committed to our team.
I think Michael Jordan started it now that because I remember the people were never Bulls fans. So many people love Michael Jordan, love watching him, but like no one was ever a fucking Bulls fan. At least from what I remember. Like I don't know any Bulls fans, even though I know tons of people, my siblings or myself who would watch when he was on, if it was in front of us. So, I think that kind of started it. And then, he also started the branding around it, like, Air Jordan and the athlete himself being its own kind of force that is, devoid, like not really affiliated with a team necessarily.
Yeah.
And then the rest just happened, whether other athletes consciously did that or not, the way he did. So, I think, but anyways, I think that, the Knicks with their fan base, there's other fan base, I think some of the older fan bases, I think Philly or the Celtics probably.
Lakers too, obviously.
Lakers, the Pistons, I think to a degree. All those original teams. I think the Heat probably have a decent fan base, I think, even though they're kind of, they always get shit.
I think they're a little fair weather though.
I mean, it's still Miami.
Yeah.
But I think as far as like Miami, because, the Dolphins reign supreme there, I think, even no matter how bad they are or good. But, they get kind of shit. But I feel like there's always a thing, there's always a kind of atmosphere. I think the Blazers have a legit fan base that like, gets upset if they lose.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's the metric. Is like, do players on the team feel it when you lose? Do you feel the negative energy coming from your fan base? If not, if the fans are just like an abstract concept to you, that are people that are just there, there's no community around it, then, it's not really going to be there. Yeah. But, it's unfair for me to say because I'm not a sports writer who's been in every arena and been able to actually feel it out. It's just kind of what I see on TV and what I, just have seen for many, many years of watching. So, but I think that's what the Knicks bring, is that element of the sport that is, of the league at least, that is lacking. So that's why it's cool.
Well, it's crazy even to think of that. Like Knicks tickets are still crazy expensive the past like 5 years, even though they themselves could not compete with anyone. It's like everyone
Yeah.
just like to go to the games. Like MSG is acoustically or like sounds like the best arena in like literally in the world. Like with
Yeah.
music or with basketball, like it just
Well, it's small.
yeah, it's small,
Have
like
you
it's
been there?
compact. You have a great like the seating itself is just very nice and like there's not a bad
Anything?
seat in the house kind of thing. It's just it's one of those. I mean, everyone talks about it. It's just like the mecca of basketball. And it's just now that they actually have a good team, like think about like when the fans actually can come back and like start
Oh my God.
watching
I've been
it. Like
thinking that the whole time.
yeah,
I've been,
it's gonna be wild. And
oh my
so
God. Even when they went like when they went 5-3, I mean, to start the
oh
year,
yeah,
I mean, can you imagine how loud that would have been?
oh
I bet they would have had an extra win or two.
yeah, yeah,
I feel like that would have helped their, they'd be at 500 right now or better
yeah.
if they had the fans there. There's no way they wouldn't.
I completely
Maybe it
agree.
would make them worse. I don't know.
And then just to speak on your point too about like the no community NBA fans, like Minnesota, right? They took Chris Finch, who was the assistant coach of the Raptors, and they like kind of they just hired him not interim, like he's like a full time coach, even though they're like 7-24, they're the worst team in the NBA. And they had this like assistant coach on their team that they could have just like molded as an interim coach and just like see if it worked out. And this suppose I don't know who this person is, but I was listening to like a Ringer NBA podcast today with like Raja Bell and I forget who the other guy was. But basically, it's like this guy worked with like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. They have high regard for him. I should honestly know this coach's name, but he's the assistant coach of Minnesota, and they don't move him up. Like you'd think that like Minnesota, like if the Timberwolves actually had a good fan base and like a good community, they would have been all over Twitter like shaming this guy at all. And I had no idea until I listened
That's
to this.
another gauge is like
Yeah,
online presence, I guess, you know,
yeah,
like, I mean, I know that, I know that in like a lot of things, like, you know, Twitter or a lot of the platforms are not real life, but I think with sports fan bases, they kind of are. Maybe not in terms of fan opinion, but definitely in terms of like energy. Because if you have a broad, energetic fan base, you're gonna see them online
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah,
I mean, you see it with, and it's not just because you know of again of where I'm from in my own local media ecosystem, but with the Bills, for example, you see that come out, and it's nationally known. Like you hear national reporters and people on ESPN be like, "Oh, Bill's Twitter's gonna get on me for this." You
yeah,
know, it's a known thing. But again, that's a different sport. It's a sport that has a much higher volume of active fan bases.
yeah.
But in the NBA, but yeah, I mean, the Timberwolves are one of those teams. I think that's probably something that probably part of why KG wanted to leave. I'm sure he was just like, there's no momentum here.
Yeah.
It's like there's no one's pushing anyone to be to be better. There's
Yeah.
no fan pressure, which means there's no organizational pressure. So it's just like we're just kind of stuck here getting old.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I wonder. It'd be interesting for someone who's actually been in those places. But then no one wants to make that list because everyone will just get pissed off at you.
Yeah.
Like I had to be the asshole reporter who's like, this fan base is better than this fan base because these people suck. Like you're
Yeah.
just inviting like fucking death threats or some shit.
Plus, like as a beat writer, you depend on those like institutions to be able to go in those locker
Yeah.
rooms, so you can't really even do that.
It'd have to be someone who's like one of these like national, like extremely well paid, you know, like it'd be like a Colin Cowherd type
Right.
list.
Yeah.
I think he's probably made a list like that. Maybe not about NBA franchises, but definitely like NFL for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
everyone gets mad because the people are babies.
People are soft. They're
Yeah,
snowflakes, Chris. Haha.
people are babies now. Everyone just thinks that they should be yeah, they should be made to feel good by their sports commentators
Yeah. I
for
mean,
some reason.
we're all soft nowadays. Whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Utah Jazz. They have the best record in the NBA. They are 24-6. They have lost only 4 times in all of 2021, which is kind of wild to say because it is March. They just went on a 9-game winning streak where they beat the Pacers, Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, and the Clippers before they just lost to the Clippers again. I think yesterday, maybe the day before. All right, so they're like 2.5, I believe, up on the Lakers, and I mean, they're clicking. Like Donovan Mitchell, my guy, has been just like absolutely killing it. Jordan Clarkson is averaging 18 points a game for this team off the bench, which is just kind of absurd. Like sixth player of the year, vibes right there. All right, so do you think the Jazz just have it in them to keep up this momentum?
I mean, I think the regular season, but there's parallels to this, right? I mean, this kind of reminds me, of like the Kings of like 20 years ago.
Like the Vlade
One like
Divac.
yeah, they had Chris Webber,
Right.
Jason Williams, White Chocolate. Like 20 years ago, they won like 60 games, and they had like 3 straight seasons of like these deep runs, and then they ran into the Lakers, and I feel like that's the kind of thing that's going to happen because they're only 2.5 ahead of the Lakers. Anthony Davis has been out for the last little while now, the last couple games, and he's going to be out for the next few weeks, I think.
Yeah.
So that's with him out. And then of course, you got to factor in, because I think it's a real thing, got to factor in that little playoff bump. Once they're in the playoffs, it's, LeBron will kick it into even higher gear. Anthony Davis will be there. They were the champs last year. And you have a roster with the Jazz that isn't. I just actually noticed that they have Elijah Hughes. I didn't know that. Syracuse great, Elijah Hughes.
Oh right, yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. But they don't have the power that the Lakers have. When you have LeBron and AD, I just don't know if you're Mike Conley's and your Donovan Mitchell's, they can overpower that, or Rudy Gobert. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, he could be like a D Wade type of guy. But he doesn't have, a guy like Shaq, even a Shaq back then. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be possible against a team like the Lakers and AD, unless AD stays hurt. But they're a team that can definitely go to the conference finals. I mean, so if that's the metric for being for real, and not straight up like title or not, then yeah, I think they are for real. I think they can definitely get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think their next hump that they have to get over is just the second round, because I believe they've made the second round. They always used to lose to the Rockets because basically Rudy Gobert was unplayable. And then last year they were up 3-1 on the Nuggets, was playing one of the best offensive like efficiency like ratings that you could possibly have for an NBA team, and then completely lost that. In the 3 games they lost, like I forget, I think it was Conley had like an open shot just to win. And then like the Nuggets go to win, they obviously come back 3-1 on the Clippers, make the conference finals. Like it's so easily, like the Jazz could totally do that. Also, like this whole bubble thing when they went down for those playoffs, they didn't have Bogdanovich, and like he's an important player for like their offense. It's just how they have like another shot creator, they have another shooter out there. So it's like Donovan Mitchell has these problem where he's going to get into his own zone, and he's not the best passer, it's like best creator. Like it's like 5 assists a game, which is like not too bad. But then again, right, you have Mike Conley as your counterpart. Like this team, I don't know. I feel like they're deep enough to make noise. Like them and like this team in Denver, I feel like is so similar, where it's like they just have a ton of like good players, just like not like the top like 10. Don't have like
I get them confused. I always get them confused.
Yeah.
Because there's like Jamal Murray on the Nuggets, who's kind of like Donovan Mitchell a little bit.
Yeah.
But then they have Jokic, who's like kind of not like anybody at all. So I don't know.
True, but it's like a good center,
similar,
right?
Similar part of the country, like Denver and Utah, like way out there. It's kind of, but I think they're better. I think that just because of their regular season performance, I think they're better than the Nuggets. I mean, but I think I said something the complete opposite several episodes ago. I think when we talked about the Jazz and Nuggets. I forgot why. I don't know if it was like we were talking about like season preview. I don't know what. Well, what? It was the playoffs.
Right.
Last summer.
Yeah.
They had a playoff series, and I think the Nuggets won, right?
Yeah, the Nuggets won. They came back.
Yeah, that's right. But so I guess that did end up being correct. But now it's I don't know what it is. I don't know. I mean, I know they're efficient. They're meeting all the metrics that you look at. It's not like it's fluky. Like there's everything that indicates that it's a legit winning streak. I just think that they just gel well together, and when you gel well together, especially in the regular season, you don't like fuck up a lot. I think that's like the difference. Like at the end of the game, you don't have anyone just like tossing up clankers and like doing stupid turnovers, and I think like those things combined with a little bit of luck and talent add up to just a lot more wins than you would probably expect. And I think that's really what's just kind of going on. I think they're just in a groove and they click well, and they're probably going to ride it pretty deep into the playoffs because I'm not sure who else in the West is consistent enough to put them away besides the Lakers. The Clippers can be a threat, but they've had their own problems. They just lost last night too. They've had their own problems in the playoffs, especially under Doc Rivers, though. I'm not sure. I just don't know who else in the West could for sure put them down.
I mean, I think it's the Clippers, the Blazers maybe, but their defense is always shaky.
Yeah, they're kind of consistent.
And the Jazz could play good defense, I feel like, against the Blazers. So
yeah,
I don't know if the Warriors, if they just get like hot, maybe they could like throw something in. But like definitely the Jazz are in there, the Clippers are in there, and I just think of recency bias, like you could throw the Nuggets really in there that could make noise.
There's no one else though. Like all the Texas teams are bad.
Yeah.
Which is I don't think there's been a time in, oh my God, maybe 25 years, not even more than that, probably 30 years, where all the Texas teams were this bad.
Well, Spurs are like surprisingly like somehow in there. I don't think they'll hold this up.
Yeah, but people know what their ceiling is.
Right. This is it.
Like people know they're not gonna do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the Mavericks have been a big disappointment.
Yeah, honestly, there was a point in the season where people were like, "Oh, the Knicks are gonna have like a top 5 pick because the
Mavs have like a lottery, 2 lottery picks, essentially."
Absolutely won the Porzingis trade.
They did win because that pick turned into quickly eventually because they used the Porzingis pick to get someone who turned into a pick that turned into quickly or something like that.
Like a trade that became another trade or whatever.
It was indirect, but without the Porzingis trade, they wouldn't have quickly.
Yeah.
So, it's been great. And, Porzingis still has to sit out every other game. He's, it's all weak need. So, I don't have a problem with how things have shaken out on that front. And I can't say that, I'd ever root for the Mavericks to succeed until he's off the team.
What a turnaround, though. Just like, there was the terrible
I was
trade.
never the biggest Porzingis guy. I didn't, I didn't like that they drafted him. I had my moments where I was kind of sold a little bit. It was fun to have a guy that they drafted who was, the unicorn, 7'2", could shoot. Well, I think the trade, though, kind of went up and down, right? Like, at first, people were like, wait a minute. This could be pretty savvy here by the Knicks. Because he's out the rest of he ended up being out the rest of the year right after the trade was announced, which they didn't know at the time.
Right. Yeah.
But then he did come back and had a pretty solid season last year and was great in the playoffs. So everyone went back to being like the Knicks. Come on, like they're the worst. And then this year, again, Porzingis starts off a little hurt, missing games, comes back, kind of plays well, but it just looks soft. It was fucking Hubie Brown, who's like 87 years old. Niagara legend as well. People might not know that.
Purple Eagles, let's go.
Yeah, Perps. I think they just beat Siena the other night, actually.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And, but anyways, he was commentating a game a couple nights ago, and he was just basically calling Porzingis like a pussy. He was saying how, like, Porzingis had like kind of a breakaway, and like tried to like dunk it, but went in with like one hand for some reason, and it like didn't go in, like it got kind of blocked a little bit, or like kind of off the rim.
Yeah.
And Hubie Brown's like, when you're 7'3", you don't go with one hand. He's just like, you were being a bitch, man. Like,
come on,
doing?
man.
Like,
yeah.
This weak little fucking one-handed dunk when you're like way bigger than the guys around you.
Damn, Hubie
was terrible.
Brown, man. He still got it.
Yeah, Hubie Brown is just calling dudes out.
All right, I wanted like a minute 30 seconds just to bring up the Anthony Edwards dunk of the year over Yuta Watanabe, because he just murdered him.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, go check Twitter, go check like YouTube, because
this is the most famous that Yuri is going to be, I think.
Yeah.
I think this is probably his peak. Unfortunately, is getting just his shit
Oh,
rocked.
Yuta? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. His story is
Or
pretty
Yuta,
cool.
yeah, I said Yuri. Yuri's like a Russian name.
Right. Yeah. Um, but Yuta's story is pretty cool because he like I don't know he went to like prep school in Connecticut, which I found out. I don't know, I was like, oh shit. But then he like played at George Washington. He like came from Japan, like not knowing anyone and like not really knowing the language, and now he's like he is a rotation player in the Raptors lineup right now. So I think he'll be around. I mean, obviously that might just fall out.
But
Um,
I mean famous.
oh no. Oh
In
yeah, yeah.
terms of
Oh
like
like other. Oh yeah,
in
true.
terms of people saying his name at a
Yeah,
high volume.
yeah, definitely. But also, I just want to point out, Anthony Edwards did not have a good game that game. He shot like 3 of
No, yeah.
17.
Well, he's had a bad season.
He's gotten a little better though, the past like month.
He has pops, but I mean, he shouldn't have been the number one pick. Like I think that's kind of clear, right? Like it doesn't mean he's gonna suck,
Okay,
but
but like, so you try to maybe you Jacob Wiseman's the second pick, right? You can't have him and Cat on the same team. Like that just doesn't make sense. Who has two prominent centers? Like you're not the Cavs. And then like you can't really get LaMelo because you
there's
have
no
D'Angelo
positions
Russell.
anymore. There's
Right.
no positions anymore. Who cares?
I mean, I guess I think it's still important. And like Anthony Edwards is like a wing. It's just like Fett. It made sense for that team because then you still have like guards, wings, and bigs pretty much. Like there's it's
Yeah.
at least three positions. So it's like you got the wing in Edwards, you got the guard in Russell. Now who's Cat? There's the three, and then we'll just kind of play around.
I mean, LaMelo Ball.
Yeah,
LaMelo
I mean
Ball.
that probably would have been better.
I mean, and that's not even just like a hindsight thing. Like, I mean, he was talked about as the number one pick, like all the way up to the draft.
Right.
I mean, no one would have been surprised if the Timberwolves picked LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a totally conventional pick.
Honestly, like
I mean,
all three of them were up in the air, like that night too. Like they could have picked
yeah.
Edwards, you could have picked Wiseman, you could have picked Melo.
Some were saying Obi Toppin was going to be up there.
Yeah.
Obi Toppin was, the probably to consider one of the most well-rounded pro-ready guys. He definitely was not the most pro-ready.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah, we'll say that now.
He looked shaky out there a lot,
Yeah.
but I mean, those four guys were really the kind of it, and then you had your second tier, like kind of Halliburton, Killian Hayes, Isaac Okoro, but I didn't think much of him.
Right.
I liked Kira Lewis a lot, but he went pretty high. He went a little higher than I thought. I thought he would fall to the Knicks second pick, hopefully, but he didn't.
Yeah.
But they got quickly, so it was fine.
So it's fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Texas. So if you have not followed, which I'm pretty sure you have, they've had a lot of energy issues. They've had things that build up where it's like $1,000 a day for just trying to keep.
They're low energy.
Right. Yeah.
Like
They
them.
don't have these restrictions like to kind of keep these bills down. Because they're not obviously they're not believers really in climate change. Not only did Ted Cruz leave for Texas during this winter spell, but also their Attorney General Ken Paxton left for Utah, supposedly to meet the Utah Attorney General and like talk about like police enforcement or something, which just kind of seems bullshit in my opinion.
Yeah.
And as of today, about a third of the state's population still might not have will have issues with their water supply.
Wow,
which is
I didn't know
just
that.
wild.
That's pretty fucked.
All right, I don't really have a lot here other than like Texas is stupid and like this is just absurd. Like how can an energy company charge $1,000 a day for like anything in a pandemic in a time where people like
Well,
can't
their
pay
whole
stuff?
thing is just like, well, the supply is low, so that's what the price is,
Right.
right? Because all the pipes are frozen.
Yeah.
They didn't winterize anything. And I think, and again, I don't know, because I used to have a clearer grasp on like what the right wing spheres were saying, but I feel like they've become so like in their own like weird little dark tunnels that I'm not quite sure what it is they're saying, because I don't think there's a unified front anymore, because they're starting to move away from Fox News, because at first what they were saying was this thing that they were pretending that it's like a green energy problem,
right.
in Texas of all places. the 50 to 55 years of like right-wing politics dominance of Texas and their dependence on oil and their proud and defiant embrace of oil somehow means that green energy was powering Texas and froze. But they didn't winterize, and really the thing with Texas is people might have seen the map, maybe not, where you look at all the interconnected power grids, the East Coast, all the east of Mississippi and then west, and the huge majority of the state, besides like the Panhandle and I think the very furthest like eastern parts, maybe above Houston, are on those power grids, and then the rest of the state, where all the major cities are and where everybody lives, is its own thing. And it's kind of like controlled by this, and I don't want to say state run, but it's this public kind of oversight consortium that basically just like ensures this like weird cartel of energy companies that control the whole state's like power supply, right? And since this is a sports podcast, Jerry Jones is the owner of one of these companies.
Oh, of course he is.
That is jacking up these prices.
Yeah.
And it's been reported that they're giddy about it, right? Because they can make a lot of money off this. I'm not sure how. Because I don't know how people are going to pay that. Right? It says right here. Actually, it's been sports outlets reporting. SI.com. It says as Texas freezes, Jerry Jones does what he's always done.
Makes money.
And he's, even though the citizens of Arlington, Texas, probably put in about a third of the cost of his Cowboy Stadium that was built into.
Yeah. The one thing.
It sucks. But like, how they're rationalizing, like Rick Perry saying like, oh, the people of Texas are proud to sacrifice, so that they don't have to go onto this like national power grid, psycho shit. But it's we'll see how it goes. I'm jaded. I don't think it'll change anyone's mind there. I think they'll always just blame someone else, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I kind of had a problem with this whole thing is like I felt like I saw, and I know like Twitter isn't like a real world kind of thing, but I thought I saw some people just saying like, oh, this is like Texas's fault, like blah blah is dumb. Like they had a like I wouldn't say a majority, but a lot of people voted for like Biden or voted for like Democrats, and like say what you want about the Democratic Party and like how they're dealing with all this hoo-ha or whatever, just like in the world, but like they're not the people that are most affected by this, like the people in the cities, like people of color, all this other stuff about it. Like they didn't vote for Rick Perry or like Ted Cruz or all these like people to create these inferior energy policies. Like they tried to vote against it. So it's like they don't deserve to have this happen to them. Like this is just a catastrophe. Like on their like Texas state not having a national grid, not having all these like standards that like pretty much every other state, well, I wouldn't say every other state, but like a majority of the states have. And it's just they don't deserve that. We shouldn't completely dunk on them. But it's just like their leadership. And,
the thing that's must be really frustrating if you're in Texas is, if you're talking like about electoral politics, the people making the state red are by and large the people that are moving there. Because people will say, like, and even people who live in Texas who are right-wing, who have always lived there, they're always like, oh, I hope all the people moving here from, California or New York or wherever, they don't change us. But in reality, they're getting a lot of the right-wing people from New York and the right-wing people from California.
Are you sure? Because like all these people are moving to like Austin, right? And like kind of Dallas, maybe Houston. Right.
Not necessarily. I mean, a lot of them are moving to the suburbs. I mean, I think if you're talking about young people, like people who you and I might know who have done that, then yeah, maybe. But overall, I mean, you look at the voting patterns, and I mean, people like people who are actually Texas natives. I wouldn't say it's like a blue state and sitting there lying in wait, because it never comes true, no matter how many times people keep thinking it will. But it's a lot closer than you think. I mean, Trump won it by like 5.5%, and that's pretty solid by, I think, our standards that we were used to in elections, but that's not like insurmountable at all. If you run a candidate that'll really appeal to things, especially in the wake of a statewide infrastructure collapse. So it's tough to say because again, this could all be forgotten about in 8 months. This whole ordeal.
Yeah.
It'll be something that no one ever talks about again, and maybe in the state they will, maybe they won't. But it is fascinating. It's fascinating how we rationalize these pretty widespread failures in our own system, and it's never the system's fault.
Well, I think the problem is you don't have people like pushing for this in that state. Like maybe you have certain sections of certain cities that are pushing it, but it's like a statewide thing. It's like Texas is so huge, you'd have to coordinate that with like multiple coalitions and like organizations to even try to push that. And even if you do that, there's no guarantee that like these like state legislators or other people will actually create this change. So it's a very daunting kind of thing. So hooray.
Yeah. I mean, well, you know what? The lights will come back on, and you know, it's
right. But this is gonna happen again. Like they're gonna have cold spells. Like this is like climate change.
Yeah, there's gonna be more cold spells. I mean, it might not happen next year, because it has happened for a while. I mean, I don't know if it's ever been this widespread, but I mean, this has not been something that a lot of people weren't surprised by this. A lot of people knew that they couldn't handle a, below average winter. So, but again, it's they didn't want to pay money to winterize their stuff, and that includes winterizing the green energy stuff, which again, lots of green energy stuff in very, very cold states, and cold parts of the world, even in Antarctica. So it doesn't make sense, but like it's not supposed to make sense. They're not saying it to make it make sense, right? They're saying it so that it's a thing that's injected into like the atmosphere of national conversation and public dialogue, just to create just enough of an air of doubt that people won't, in consensus, be like, yes, this is the fault of our private for-profit prioritization of how we distribute resources, particularly energy and things like that, things that we need.
Yeah.
So if you create just enough doubt, you'll have just enough people who are going to jump on that and just be like, oh yeah, you know what? It was green energy. I don't care who says what. I don't know how many people this is, but now, there's people online and, QAnon type people saying that the snow is fake because it doesn't melt when you light a torch to it or a lighter to it.
What?
It just burns. Yeah, I don't want to say that because that's probably not like something that's like a lot of people believe, but
right.
It's on the internet and there's a good amount of it on the internet of people saying that. So I don't know. It just feels hopeless. Whenever people that have rationalized anything that is an obvious failure and collapse to just mean whatever it is that they want, because they're determined, they've made up their minds that there is no future. So like it just ends up being like whatever flavor of like stupid culture war shit is happening at the time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's just like, okay, this is awful, like, right, like this is terrible, why don't they fix this kind of energy stuff? And then it's just like next week maybe there's something else that happens and people will totally forget about this. That's probably exactly what will happen. All right, I think that concludes this week's podcast. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. Do you have any closing thoughts or any Knicks stuff?
Go Knicks. Go Knicks. Also, Artemi Panarin on the Rangers.
Oh my God.
I think he's facing probably a political persecution. It seems like he's been very outspoken for a lot of his career, but especially lately in the wakes of Alexei Navalny, that's how you pronounce it, being imprisoned by Vladimir Putin. Even though, again, Navalny sucks. He's, another right-wing demagogue guy. I don't really care if he's imprisoned or not. But Panarin has been speaking out for his release because it's just out of, because the UN is, the whole world is. And there is the insinuation that, the allegation against him is that there was an 18-year-old when he was 19 who he hit. But it's not like a sexual assault. I don't think they're claiming that, but like a physical assault. And what immediately makes me think that this is bullshit is, one, the people who know Russian politics and the Russian hockey team that this is their attempt at just kind of freezing him so that he's not on the team because they think that'll disrupt their whole Olympic thing. And it's a big deal over there, the Russian hockey team. And two, that it's just kind of the fact that the Rangers came right out in front defending him. That's unusual. They're not a team that I'm not going to say they're like this model organization, but they're not a team that like sticks their neck out right away for a guy if they weren't completely fucking sure that this was an obvious piece of bullshit. They were probably made aware that something like this was going to come up. They didn't know when or if. So I'm guessing that they were just waiting for it to happen. And, it's just kind of what it seems like. So, hopefully it is what is the case because the evidence is overwhelming that it is. And, hopefully Panarin's back out there.
Yeah. I think it's totally... So first off, anyone who does not know what's happened, basically Artemi Panarin, who plays for the Rangers, had to take a leave of absence from the Rangers for a political piece against him for the allegedly hitting an 18-year-old girl in Russia in 2011. I think it's obviously, like, fake.
It's so weird.
Yeah. It's like, it's Russia. How can you trust Russia, like, news outlets, especially, like, Putin-fed ones?
Right as he's speaking out, he's, like, speaking out more than ever.
Yeah.
And again, that's not a new, and this isn't new, right? This isn't, like, a right away thing. Like, he's been doing this for, like, especially since he came to the Rangers, I feel like, where he maybe had a bigger platform than he did. He's been very out front on his social media, at least, right? Doesn't talk about it during press conferences or anything like that, but his social media has been pretty frequent with a lot of anti-Putin, free Navalny kind of stuff. So it's very obvious, I think. It's just that no one can do anything about it, and he fears for his family. I don't think anything will happen to them, but it's just not good for the team to be having a semi-international incident happening.
Yeah. I mean, I would totally, if I was him and his family, I'd totally fear that. Like, you don't really know Russia. You don't really know Putin's, like, range and his, like...
They're under threat. Yeah, he's the president until he dies. Like, there's no way out.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. All right, thanks for that snippet, because I wasn't going to talk about that, but that is definitely huge news. In the world. So please follow us on you can follow us on Twitter at Sports Snowflake now. It's a new page, got a whopping 21 followers.
Hell yeah.
You can follow us on Instagram at Snowflake Sports Podcast. You can follow Chris at Chris Crossover. No E, right?
Just OVR. Yeah,
OVR. Chris OVR. You can follow my personal page at Lucky Profession if you'd like. We're on Facebook, all streaming, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, whatever. But thank you for listening to the Snowflake Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dan, and keep those takes soft and snowy. Thanks.
Ooh, I like that.